Right, let's put the face to the voice.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone.
Eric, you look like Eric, you're a fine guy, you know.
I'm a
Look
fun
very
guy.
fine.
Yeah, thank you. I hope I present as I look. Anyway, good morning,
Okay.
everyone.
Good to have
I'm Eric and I'm calling from
uh,
London, especially for this presentation. Obviously, we're supposed to start at 10, but different cultures, different, I don't know, feel of time. Like, I believe Japanese and German people would be like 2 hours before the meeting. And I think here we are a bit late to start, but again, people are coming, and that's the main point. So, this presentation is gonna take us approximately 1.5 hours, and it's gonna be focused on project finance and marketing solutions. So, we specialize as a boutique investment bank and marketing agency in different solutions that we're gonna be presenting to you today. And hopefully, this is gonna be of value because, again, our main goal from this presentation is to take a look at the projects, especially in the residential property development space in Nigeria and especially in larger conglomerations like Lagos, Port Harcourt, and others, to potentially see if there is anything that we could help with. And indeed, this is all about potentially bringing finance into the project and then helping the project with the risking and commercialization by selling some of the units. So that's more or less the overview. It's all about project finance and marketing of the projects. Again, we've got the full presentation. I'm not going to be just speaking for you from the screen or anything like that. But obviously, I'm waiting for Ejiro and Jonathan to give me a green light to potentially kick this off and then take it from there. In the meantime, if you ladies, I can see a lady definitely on the left hand side on the camera, and then gentlemen would like to introduce yourself and tell us what you are involved in. Obviously, that could help us facilitate this conversation. What is your business about? What are you interested in? Because then we could align the goals of this presentation with your expectations. And I could basically, focus on the specific area a bit more. So I'd love to know, for example, if you've got a business, what is it? If you are working for some property developer or infrastructure company, what are you involved in? Are you perhaps in engineering? Are you in project management, finance, marketing, sales? Again, that could help us direct and align this conversation in the right direction. So, if anyone would be brave enough to unmute, or let's say even speak for whoever is within this meeting room, this very nice meeting room, I must say, I like it, and I obviously can see on the camera, and would like to tell us a couple of words about yourself, that would be very much appreciated and help us with the next stages of this presentation. So that's very briefly about me. Thank you.
right,
Okay.
Eric, let me just start.
There are no brave
I will
people in
start.
Nigeria. Jeez. No brave people to introduce. Come on, guys.
every Nigerian is brave.
Come on, Akin. You're already speaking. Tell us something about yourself.
Okay, name is Akin. I'm a lawyer in Nigeria and in the US. I'm presently in the US. The time here is about 4 a.m. or going to 5 a.m. Um, so I'm into property and applicable laws regarding the ownership of property in Nigeria. So that's what I do. I'm presently senior special assistant on anti-corruption matters to the Speaker of House of Reps, Nigeria.
Okay. So there is a commitment. 5 o'clock in US, and you are awake.
Yeah, it's not 5 yet. It's about 4:30 now. Yeah, 4:30 in the US.
Jeez. So would that be Midwestern time? Is that right? You're not East Coast.
No, we are not East Coast, Midwest.
Midwest. That's what I thought. Exactly. We've got some customers in US. So again, we usually schedule the meetings for the afternoons UK time, especially for
Yeah,
them not to wake them up at your time. at 4:30
It's
p.m.
okay. It's okay.
Anyway, thank you for the introduction. So, Mr. Lawyer in US and Nigeria. So again, I can refer to that definitely. Thank you for this, Akin.
You're welcome.
Let's move on. Let's see who is around the table. So I can see
Hello.
Mr. Babatunde driving, and I can see some lady on the left of mine, probably right from the screen in the main room. Would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a couple of words. Mr. Babatunde.
Yeah, I am Babatunde Fale. I am a structural engineer and a consultant to a few estates companies about, and I major on property development, infrastructure development, and basically consultancies of major estate projects.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so structural engineering
That's what I do.
in property development. Is that mostly residential, commercial, industrial? What's your specialty, would you say?
Residential and commercial.
Okay. So residential
Yeah,
is of
multi-use.
definite interest to us, which I'm gonna put on the presentation there, because again, we know that Nigeria and Lagos in particular have large deficit of housing. So again, these are some of the, well, I'm not gonna say the easiest, but simply the projects of interest for us potentially to speak with. Which again, let's see the presentation, and then hopefully we can all refer to. Right. So thank you for this,
Right.
Babatunde.
Thank you.
Who's next? Lady that is smiling, would you like to introduce yourself?
That should be me. I think I'm next. Oh,
Okay.
they live me first. Sorry.
Yes. Okay, Kunle. You're muted at the moment. Can you unmute yourself? We could hear you like for a couple of seconds. Okay.
Yeah,
I think that's better. You're coming up.
I thought you wanted the lady to go first, and I agree with that. Right. Yeah, my name is Kunle. I'm into I'm into corporate security and logistics. Train in the UK as well with my partners in United Kingdom. So I'm basically into security based in Nigeria and logistics.
Okay. So
Thank you.
if I understood it right, because the voice wasn't very clear, you're into two things. First one is logistics. So I would think some transport companies and so on. So potentially warehousing, some distribution centers. I don't know if that's exactly the side of the business that you're into, but I'm guessing this, if you can confirm that for us. And then secondly, I'm not sure if I heard that right. You said corporate securities, if I get that. So again, I'd love to learn a bit more about that. If you can unmute yourself, maybe don't switch on the camera, so the bandwidth is gonna be better, because I think you're the man who's currently on holidays abroad, so maybe that's the problem. Up to you. And in the meantime, we've lost the main meeting room. Ejiro needs to reconnect his laptop. But again, I will be able, gentlemen, to somehow refer to what you introduced here. For both, US is obviously much easier than Nigeria for anything that we do. We've got our own direct fund in US, which is going to be presented during this presentation. Nigeria, we work mostly in the financing advisory capacity. But again, the presentation is going to explain everything point by point. So instead of me just speaking, out of blue sky, we will be all able to see on the screen basically everything that we can potentially refer to in both Nigeria and US. Let's take it from there. Akin, are you having holidays in US like it is currently in UK because of Queen's Jubilee? I wouldn't think so, yes? You don't celebrate this stuff.
Celebrate what? Silver Jubilee?
Do you have holidays, bank holidays in US like we had over the last 2 days here in UK? You don't have that.
No, no, no.
We had 17th Jubilee or reigning on the throne by Queen Elizabeth. So a lot of parties, a lot of parades, stuff like that here in UK. The most interesting fact I learned is that some pubs here, bars in UK, had a pint of beer, half a liter of beer for 30 naira, 6 pence equivalent, which was absolutely amazing to me. While normally it costs like 2,000 to 5,000 naira per half a liter of beer in UK. So that's how we were celebrating this, ladies and gentlemen. Still, that's obviously not the main subject of the conversation, but as we are waiting for people, obviously I try to get to know you and see where you are coming from. What are your interests? Anyway, let's take it from there. So I could see Ejiro has joined. Ejiro, when do you reckon we will be able to start this presentation? How does it look in the main room from your perspective?
I think there's a glitch there.
Okay, they've left. Has anyone of you been ever to London?
Ever been to London?
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you been to
I'm
London?
sure, virtually everyone has done that. I've been to London.
Okay.
Almost everyone,
Okay.
if not all.
Good. Ejiro, you were talking. You were asking something.
Yeah, I thought you asked if we should start straight away. So, in my opinion, we can just begin the presentation. I'm just guessing some of us have introduced ourselves, except for us that are here in person, face to face.
Okay, I couldn't hear very well, but I think you said to start straight away. It's 11 o'clock. Is that right? To start actually presenting.
Yes, yes. All right. So quickly, just to introduce ourselves. My name is Akira, which I and I work with a company called WIC, and we're currently working on the government project, and it's a that government project that I named Eric, So we've been working together for about a year now, and when he came up with this is introduce this business to me. So yeah, I'm so happy that I'm part of it, and I'm also happy that some of us have been able to speak into it. So I will hand over to Fumi that will introduce us.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. My name is Elias, I'm the CEO of Football Enhancement. That I launched. So that is, I'm into real estate as a real estate.
Okay.
Before the right away, you're live. Oh, okay. Well, I get that heavy up on but I'm finally about to again a civil structural engineer. I have I'm a part holder of the construction training institute, and also a consultant in various estate developments, and that's it. Really looking forward to having a conversation with you guys.
Okay, thank you for this.
Oh, okay. Speak up so that okay. I want to welcome everyone, those who are joining us virtually, and everyone here. My name is Jonathan Carlo. I have a background in construction, business development, market research, and public policy. And I am actually the sales director of Africa, representing Itoma. And as you know, from our headquarters in the UK have put up this, and we are looking forward to having a very interesting session with all of you. Thank you. Obina, you've just joined us. Could you unmute and then let's meet you?
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Obin Kafo, FCA. I'm a chartered accountant. I'm a managing consultant, CEO of Vicos Being Consults. I'm also a president of Professional Group in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you, Obina. And then we've got Banke Ayangade. I hope I pronounced it right. Would you like to unmute yourself and just briefly introduce, please?
Good morning. Yeah, this is Banker Williams. I'm an electrical engineer.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. So I'm going to take over now. I'm going to put basically the presentation on the screen. Again, different people were joining at different times. So once again, my introduction. I'm Eric Tomaszewski. I'm the managing director of Itoma Lux, and I'm calling today in from London. That's basically where we are headquartered. And basically what we do, we help property developers and infrastructure projects with the three main areas of commercialization. First one is financing, because every project needs some injection of money to make it potentially happen. Second one is marketing, because we need to get to the people to actually sell the project. And the final one are sales. So these are gonna be the elements of focus for today. But before we kick off, obviously everyone had a very nice introduction for today. Now, if it goes about myself, I've had 10 years of corporate experience, and I'm coming indeed from the project management background in corporates. The biggest project I personally managed was up to 10 million USD for the company that is UK equivalent of Amazon. And I think Amazon, everyone must have heard about them. Yes, I'm talking here about the company called Ocado, so online deliveries and so on, plus other companies in the FMCG, so fast-moving consumers goods space. And then in 2017, I said, look, actually, I hit sort of glass ceiling here in this business. They don't want to, promote me as far as I would like it. So let's start on business. And this way, Itoma Lux has been established in 2017. And as I said, we focus on financing, marketing, and sales. Here, obviously, once we finish this presentation, ladies and gentlemen, you're gonna get potentially the slides, so you will have our contact details, basically, whether that's gonna be LinkedIn or WhatsApp, and then we can take it from there. Now, this presentation is gonna take approximately 1 to 1.5 hours, depending on the questions and so on, and the main focus, at least from our perspective, is gonna be actually financing. So what you can see on the screen, that is in bold. But let's go step by step. Obviously, we had introduction, and I think everyone around the table, from both the guests as well as our core team, so Ejiro, Jonathan, and myself, we introduced. Now, next thing that we're gonna focus on is why do we have this business room? So what are the problems in property development and infrastructure projects? Why does it make a business case, and why is it a painkiller rather than vitamin, what we do? Why do we need to provide what we provide? Then we're going to focus on 3 pillars of our strategy and jump into each of them in depth. So we're going to have an insight into financing, marketing, and sales step by step, process by process, to tell you basically how we work. So then potentially you will be able to see, look, I might have this potential fit with this project, or I might have potential fit with this sales solutions or this marketing, or I need financing for the next property development project. Then the next thing is gonna be basically a bigger jump into marketing solutions. So everything that we do is digital, and you're gonna be able to see that on the screen as your potential customers could see. Then point number 6 are international property sales. So basically, what do we do on the sales front? Because any property development needs obviously to commercialize through sales, isn't it? And then finally, why Itoma Lux? Why our business? What is our strategy and USPs? And then finally, Q&A session, a proper one. But in the meantime, after each section, like financing, we're gonna have short question time. After marketing, we're gonna have another one, and after sales, another one. So everything is gonna be fresh, and that's gonna be also, sort of a break time for a tea, coffee, or whatever it's out there in the venue where you are at the moment. Toilet and so on. So that's very briefly the agenda for today. I hope it makes sense. Now, big picture property development and infrastructure. So obviously, we are established in UK. That's basically where our business is as the global financial center, isn't it? And we work as a boutique investment bank. Then we go with our solutions abroad to the countries like India, Nigeria. So let's look firstly at UK picture on this slide, and then let's take a look at Nigeria picture and then compare them. Why do we do what we do? So what do we know about property and property development? First of all, even country that is in top 5 richest in the world, like indeed UK, doesn't build enough. There's a gap of approximately 75% between 190,000 constructed units and estimated 340,000 needed. That's the data from 2020. So 75% gap in the 5th richest country in the world. And people always want to move to bigger, more comfortable, or simply invest in property as tangible assets. And again, from what I could hear during this introduction, basically everyone was saying, oh well, majority of us was saying we are in property. So again, property is one of the best ways to invest. There is a tangible asset that people can actually live in and generate income for you while increasing in equity. And obviously property is the biggest spend in most people's lives. Your car is, I don't know, maybe 1/10 of the price of your house, perhaps, or something like this. At least that's the case in UK, yes? By mortgage, you pay for the 25, 30 years. That's basically the story here. And that's why we focus on property development and infrastructure. And it's also the biggest investment class in the world. Total properties, residential, commercial, industrial, as well as forestry and farmland, is approximately 220 trillion US dollars, not billion, trillion. Big picture, the demand is higher than the supply, and there is big money involved at consumer level. I mean here mortgages, not even mentioning money involved in business, in which we focus, B2B, project, finance, marketing, and sales. Now, that was UK example. Let's take a look at Nigeria, and in particular Lagos. Let's get closer to home. So, I've got some data here that basically I dug out when I was preparing this presentation. So, just in Lagos alone, basically we've got approximately a deficit of 3.2 million housing units. So again, think what would be the cost to develop this and the spend of people. So if there's deficit, obviously that means that the prices are going to be rising because there's more demand than supply. And then when we look at the total picture of Nigeria, again, the deficit is even higher, staggering 20 million. So 6 times what we've got in Lagos alone. And it's increasing by 15%, let's say, from January 2019, I think, to 2020, from what I could see. So big picture is, there's not enough supply, and that's by far. So that's big picture, let's say, why we do what we do, why we are in this industry that we are in. And as I said, we focus on financing, marketing, and sales because that's the full commercial cycle of everything that you need for property development and infrastructure projects, or simply hard assets. Let's move on. So our mission and our goal is to enable property development and infrastructure with financing, and then de-risk it and increase chances of commercial success with marketing and sales solutions, Industry 4.0. And you're going to see basically exactly what we mean here as we're going to be moving on through this presentation. What is really this financing, marketing, and sales? Our customers. So who do we really work with? Okay, the main customer type are property developers and infrastructure project owners, sponsors, because basically they say, look, I've got this project in, say, Lagos. Basically it's gonna cost me, I don't know, 20 million to develop this many units, and basically, I need some financing. I've got the land, I've got the permits. Now, can you actually bring this extra remaining finance so we can develop it and then sell it? So that's the main type of customers. And then on the other side, once we identify the needs, whether financing, marketing, or sales, we've got basically the second side of the coin, which are for financing, investment banks, family offices, and private equity funds, along with high net worth individuals. And then also for delivery, consultants, architects, urban planners, real estate agents, brokers, and realtors. So these are basically the stakeholders that can be involved in the project, but the main focus obviously are property developers and infrastructure project owners. So that's the main groups of customers, and I hope it makes sense for you. Now, our geo focus. So probably you can hear I'm not exactly British from my accent. I would think so, at least. Tell me otherwise. I'm actually from Poland originally, but I've been in UK for the last 15 years exactly this year. So our markets of focus are obviously UK, and you're gonna see why. Then Poland, India, and Bangladesh in Asia, and then Nigeria, Ghana, and Kenya, as we believe, the three fastest developing economies and the largest by far, which you're gonna see basically on the next slide if it goes about Africa. So that's our focus. Then secondary focus is Turkey, Morocco, Egypt, Pakistan, Malaysia, and obviously US as the very large economy. And you're gonna see the references to all of these elements on the next slide. Now, why these countries? Again, we just don't go, oh, I like this country and so on. It's all about the numbers. It's all about the data coming from the stuff. So you can see basically circled out why we picked these 5 countries of focus, and one of them is indeed Nigeria, because there is increasing population while Europe is sort of dying out. We can say, you can see Ukraine at the very bottom, even before war. It was decreasing in size, and we've got an office in Ukraine, as a matter of fact, or we had before the war. But all of these countries that we focus on basically have high population growth relatively. So that's basically the first point. And second point, they are obviously increasing in wealth per capita. And that's what we are looking at, because that de-risks the project. Even though the base might not be so high as, for example, UK or US, then on the other hand, the growth is going to be huge. So basically people will be able to afford basically these units that you might be developing, or the projects that you are actually involved in will be paying off. So that's basically why we are in these territories, why we have representation, for example, in Nigeria with Jonathan and Najiro. Right, industry focus. Now, there are different types of projects. We've got obviously ticket size, we've got then geographies that we look at, and then there are different types of projects. The most interesting, and I cannot say easy to finance, but simply of the largest interest from investors, are residential type developments. And we are not talking here necessarily only luxury, we talk here about affordable projects, PPP projects, so public-private partnerships and so on, multifamily. They are some of the easiest projects to sell. Once you develop, let's say, a high-rise multifamily development, basically practically 90% of the population in a given country can actually afford it. And that's why these are the elements of our interest. So residential development. Second one is industrial, especially here on the west, where people are moving away from commercial malls, especially because of the COVID and people not being able to travel freely and everyone being afraid and stuff like that, to industrial, because everything is moving online. What do you need for online sales? For e-commerce, you need warehousing, storages, workshops, all of the logistics and distribution centers. And also, my background, manufacturing and processing plants, basically, that's what I was doing for the 10 years before I started Itoma Lux, delivering all of these projects in my previous life, I could say. Now, a bit of less interest are commercial centers, so commercial developments like offices and malls. Why? Obviously, COVID. So everyone is moving away from the offices and indeed shopping in person. And then hospitality is the least, because we've got too much capacity and still we don't know what's going to happen this winter, where the governments are going to say, look, again, you cannot travel because there is this scary COVID and stuff like that. So we tend to move away from any sort of hotel projects and so on. Residential and industrial, that's basically our bread and butter, to which I'm going to refer on the next slides. Right, and then the second type are infrastructure projects. Again, I'm not sure whether that's exactly visible, but any sort of green tech, any sort of food, especially poultry plants, and that's indeed one of my backgrounds. I was building large factories in countries like Germany, Spain, Poland, Russia, and so on. So, food, any sort of, let's say, energy plants, any sort of green facilities, that's basically financeable property projects. And my apologies because someone is joining. I'm just gonna let this person in. Okay, so someone has just joined us. Back to the presentation, ladies and gentlemen. I hope it makes sense until now. So again, infrastructure projects. We are talking here about any sort of green, any sort of food-related, agriculture, farming lands, and so on. A bit less oil and gas at this stage, because again, there is a lot of focus on the green technology. But again, the large giants like BP or Shell of the sorts obviously still have the money for it. They don't need so much project finance and so on. So hopefully it makes sense, let's say, where we can get involved, if it goes about the countries, if it goes about potentially industries, and then step by step we're gonna be moving into actual project examples and how do we bite this thing. Now, our business model, and that's the last slide before we actually jump into actual financing. So I think the most interesting part of, let's say, any project, at least from my perspective. How do we work? Say we've got a property developer or an infrastructure project owner. Say, property developer ABC. And again, apologies, I could hear someone joining us again in the background. I'm just going to let this person in. Right, so we are back on the business model. So property developer, say that he has some collateral. So that could be a piece of land, that could be some previous assets, that could be, let's say, anything
Sorry
that
to
the
cut you
business
off, but please
actually...
can everybody mute so we can hear Eric very well, please?
Sorry, can you repeat
Thank
that,
you.
please?
I think Ejiro's, can everybody mute their mic so we can hear you clearly? I think Ejiro's mic is still on and some other mics, so we can hear you clearly. So until they turn off their own mic, then we can hear clearly.
So I'm gonna mute everyone, and then just remember, guys, when there's gonna be a question session, I'm gonna basically, you will need to unmute yourself, okay? Let's just bear this in mind, please. But I'm gonna mute everyone.
Go on, I'll do that.
Well, don't worry, I've already done this for you, my friends. You are muted. Everyone is muted by me, but me. Right, so where are we? We are on the business model. So once again, hopefully now we can hear everything a bit better. So property developer or infrastructure project owner, he wants to start the projects. For example, I want to build a 500 units multi-family high-rise development, as an example, but that could be practically any type of project, really. Sorry, I can hear someone else who joined us. Akin, I'm gonna mute you. Okay. So for the third time, so this property developer or infrastructure project owner has got basically some collateral. That could be a land, that could be other assets, that could be, let's say, some cash equivalent or equity in the project, basically that they are ready to invest. So they've got some skin in the game or some collateral, and some collateral, I should say. Now, obviously, they need some financing because, for example, they might have 20% of the value of the project in land and some cash. Yes, but they need 80% remaining cost to be actually put into this project. And that's exactly where we as Itoma Lux can come into place. We find basically for this specific project, depending on geography, depending on the type of project, depending on the ticket size, specific lender or investor. So, lender is more investment bank investing debt. Investor is more like the equity investor. And then again, it depends on a project by project who we're gonna bring, which is obviously agreed once we pre-qualify it. This lender or investor puts the money, say, for 3, 5, 7 years into the project with the certain terms that we agree contractually based on the actual financial model or the business model of this development. And then obviously at the end of this project, there is some repayment or profit share. Repayment is usually for the debt, profit share is usually for the equity investors. So this is basically the financing bit, what you've got currently on the screen. Now, on top of that, what we do as Itoma Lux, as part of our business model, are marketing and sales solutions, which again are going to be presented here today, which simply de-risk and commercialize the project because while financing, the biggest chunk of work is done before project actually started, marketing and sales solutions, the biggest chunk of work, by us at least, is done during the project because obviously you need to have something at least, I don't know, 20% completed. Let's say, some foundation dug out, and built to actually be able to start selling the project that is coming out. And that's exactly where we as a business come into place, working together with property developer or infrastructure project owner to actually help with this commercialization and the risking. And then final element, but minority at the moment, which we will try to develop, is looking at green funds financing solutions. We talk here about UN, so United Nations SDG 7, 9, 11, and 11, that's United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 7, 9, and 11, which stands for energy, city, and industrialization. So different types of project obviously involved in this, where again we are looking for sources of funding to potentially inject into the project, but this is still a bit in the development at this stage. So that's our business model. And now finally, and I speak Spanish, what they call in Spanish la leche. So, the milk or the cream of basically the business. So financing. Now we go into this section, and at the end of it, which should take us some 20 minutes, I believe, there is gonna be the first Q&A section. So again, if you will have any sort of questions, let us know at the end of this section. So financing. Let's first look, what do we mean basically? What are the problems we find are on the market? And then secondly, what are the solutions that we try to align with to potentially help with the projects? First of all, low availability. That's why we specialize purely in a singular type of assets, hard assets. So property development and infrastructure. We don't do, for example, I don't know, software, because that's not tangible. We don't do startups because again, there is high risk, so we don't do that. We specialize purely in the hard assets, property, infrastructure. That's basically what, our specialty, our expertise. Second of all, high rates, especially in developing nations. And here again, we try to come, let's say, with the solutions where, these rates could be more reasonable by tapping into actual lenders with the specific rates, specific mandates. Because obviously, if you've got the whole world of investors, only this many will invest, for example, in Nigeria, only this many will invest in property in Nigeria, only this many will focus on residential. So again, it's about finding the right investor for the specific project. There is no universal lender for anything that is coming out there. Then low success rate. We try to, let's say, mitigate that with the proper expert pre-qualification and process, which again, I believe it's world class based on our success rate. And then finally, inflexibility. So again, multiple options for senior debt, mezzanine equity with various terms, which are specific for the specific project. So that's basically the problems you find in finance. Now, what is the process? So A to Z, let's go step by step. First thing first is obviously introduction. Every project is a bit different. Every project is going to have different needs, different terms, different collaterals, different skin in the game, different advancement stage, and so on. So we try to look basically at this at the introduction stage and get some more documentation for a start with financial pre-qualification. Then we move to high level terms, and which is basically a quotation, a contractual document that is going to say, look, we're going to try to raise the finance for you at this rate, basically for this much time, and so on, which again depends on your business model elements. Then the proper due diligence starts, so we verify for the investors basically that everything actually fits. So if you told us, look, we've got this land that is worth 4 million USD, or I don't know, 40 million for this example. We obviously will want to see the appraisals. We will want to look at all of the permits. We will check all of this stuff because no one is going to simply give you, I don't know, this much money, 20 million US dollars, basically to have a project before they are completely sure that actually this project is feasible. So this is the longest element from our experience for project finance. Then finally, once all of the elements are checked, we approach the financing with the specific terms that we have agreed on the high level terms quotation stage in step 3. And then finally, the project kicks off. So we talk here about production of marketing materials, working together on the project, which leads finally to sales and commercialization or operation of the plant and so on. And then finally to the repayment or profit share, depending whether we had debt, equity, or other combinations. I hope it makes sense. Again, here I've got basically what I was saying on the previous slide, so I think I won't go into details of that. Still, step 1 and 2 means that we introduce basically your project to the lenders and we get interest in principle saying, look, we are actually interested in this project based on the information you provided to us high level. If the customer actually tells the truth, and all of these elements sticks up, then we would be potentially interested. Step 3, as I said, if there is interest or simply liquidity for this project that we found, only then we engage with the client by issuing a contractual letter of engagement or LOE for short. So it's not LOI, which usually the people who will be promising you, let's say, the sky, will be issuing. LOI, letter of intent, is basically a non-contractual document. With us, we issue letter of engagement, contractual element that basically specifies the terms at which we're going to be raising. Step 4, once we agreed on these terms, high level, this starts the process of due diligence. So checking all of the elements of the project step by step, structuring it in the advisory capacity. Step 5, once that's ready and the project is bankable, it goes to the previously preselected lenders, investors for financing. In the meantime, obviously as the case develops and we find some new elements or maybe some new investor interest, obviously the situation might be adjusted accordingly. But again, we've got the contract with you that's specifying the terms we can raise at, and which also tells us who we can actually approach. Which then is step 9. The investor gets money back as per the structure that was built and agreed upon in steps 3, 4, and 5. And in the meantime, steps 6, 7, and 8 are basically our marketing and sales solutions, which are not indeed financing. So I'm just mentioning it here, but this helps us de-risk the project. Right, let's move on. Next element, because again, I don't know who has here any sort of experience with project finance, which is obviously different than consumer bank where they tell tell you, for example, I can lend you up to, I don't know, 100,000 naira at, I don't know, 15% a year. Yes, obviously that's very, very commercial terms. Here in project finance, we've got a different situation. We see what the project is first, and then we can agree on certain terms against the business model and elements of project commercialization. So three types of finance. First one is debt, which comes in the form of a loan to be paid back. So that's usually with the investment banks, potentially family office, if we structure it this way. Equity, so that's usually private equity funds, external investment, basically where the party takes a number of shares in your enterprise. So might have voting rights, you might have, let's say, share the profit as well as share the risk, of course. And then finally, mezzanine, which is simply a combination of the first and second one. Without going into too much detail, there are different elements, different rates. Debt is usually the cheapest form of money. Equity and mezzanine are obviously more expensive, but also there is more risk sharing with the investors. So financing, our structure. Let's now focus basically what can we do. First of all, and this is probably not applicable to Nigeria, but we've got here someone from US, Akin, I think. So we've got direct lending opportunities. We've got our own fund where with a mandate from 100,000 to 10 million USD as direct lender for projects in property development and bridging finance in UK, Ireland, USA, and potentially in EU countries. Obviously, each of these territories have different lending rates, have different, let's say, regulations. So that's why you cannot take one fund and put it everywhere. It's basically needs to be properly established, compliant with financing regulations. Hence, there needs to be a focus. Now, second thing that we do in financing, project advisory in the West. So projects from 10 million USD, where we don't invest our own funds, we find actually the lender or the investor, and we work in a project finance advisory capacity with projects from 10 million plus to make projects bankable and bring project finance. So you find interest in principle for the specific project during pre-qualification, and then if we actually find that this project is really what it's supposed to be and the investor is going to get this money back, then basically this money is going to be brought to the project. And then finally, what applies mostly to the subject of this presentation, obviously we talk here Nigeria, is project advisory in Africa. Now, what does it mean here? Again, African countries, as you can know, Nigeria obviously has quite high interest rate, which means that basic high level. That means also higher risk for the investors potentially, and so on. So here we are talking about larger projects from 20 million. So think about residential development of the specific number of units, depending on the cost. But it's basically the same type of project advisory as in the West, but simply with a larger sum of money. Because again, there are different structure in Africa than, for example, what we've got in Europe, UK, US, and so on. So that's high level what we do on the financing front. Now, jumping a bit more into it and drilling this subject. Here we've got our own funds in the West. So again, this is not really applicable to Nigeria, but simply for the sake of example, I've got this on this presentation as we deliver it for people from different geographies and so on. So this is Property Development Finance Fund. Here we can lend from 100,000 to 10 million USD at up to 70% GDV, so that's gross development value. So for example, if basically your development is gonna be 100 million USD for the sake of simplicity, we can lend up to 70% of that, so 70 million. Okay. Sorry, obviously that's up to 10 million. So if basically your GDV of the development is 10 million, we can lend up to 7. And the rates are from 8% per annum, and there are some other fees. Again, we can send you this information, but I don't believe this strictly apply to Nigeria. Then the second fund that we've got is the bridging finance. Bridging finance, again, I don't know your experience with, let's say, financing, but bridging finance is something where you release equity from the assets you've already got. What does it mean really? For example, you've got a house. Your house is worth 1 million US dollars for the sake of simplicity again. Mine isn't, definitely. Yes, one, but let's say it's 1 million. And then basically you can say, look, I want to get 750,000 USD from this house that I've already repaid, my mortgage and so on, for up to 12 months. And what I can do with this money? I can do flips. What is a flip? You basically release this equity, so you get 750,000 against your property that is worth 1 million as a collateral. And then you, for example, buy another property for 750,000 on an auction. You refurbish it and then you sell it. So that's what we call a flip in very simple terms. So you bought it for 750 and then you sell it for say 1.5 million. That would be a really good deal, really. Yes, and then you pay your 750 minus obviously your interest per month, which is 0.75% per month, and you made your money simply by getting equity back from your property, reinvesting it into an old property, refurbishing it, and then selling it, which leads to repayment of the finance. I hope it makes sense. Again, these are our own funds here in UK. Now, let's jump back, let's say, what we can do in Nigeria and basically the other geographies. Again, minimum project value. And the first question that we would be asking is, have you approached local market already? What was their feedback if it goes basically about the financing? Because that should be your first step. And then basically when you cannot find liquidity in your local market, that's potentially where we can help. Our own fund, as we said, this is for UK, Ireland, US, potentially some EU countries. That's 100k to 10 million, not applicable to Nigeria, unfortunately. Yet, the West from 10 million, basically that's where we can do project advisory. And then Africa from 20 million USD. That's basically where we can work on projects, and we're going to show you some of the examples from our portfolio and our partners. Second thing worth knowing on financing, plan it in. It can take anywhere from 2 to 12 months to check structure and complete the deal. That's basically the situation, because we check whether you've got the land agreement, whether you've got the deed, whether you've got the permits, whether you've got everything in place, the business model, the financial model. Everything needs to be basically tip top for the investor to actually finally say, look, I'm happy with what you've got. Now let's move on this. Let's put the money into their bank. On average, it takes 6 months in Africa, 4 months in the West, and again, I'm talking here advisory, while with our own fund, it's usually under 1 month because we are the direct decision makers on our own fund. But again, the main thing here is 6 months in Africa and over 20 million USD. These are the types of projects where we can get involved, and you're gonna see a couple of examples in this part. Next thing worth knowing, your skin in the game. No one is gonna give you 100% of the money in the project. That's basically a given. But the higher collateral, the higher chances you get the finance and at better terms. Simply, there is the project, basically, depending on the value. If you bring 50% of the total value of the project as your own equity, as for example the land, as some cash, and so on, and then you need only 50%, you're gonna have much higher chances of getting this finance, and at much better terms if it goes about the rate and let's say the speed of approvals, interest from the investors, liquidity in general. Collateral can be a cash, land, other assets, equity in the project, in very simple terms. And the majority of lenders, as I said before, won't be interested at all unless you have skin in the game and and some USPs basically. So unique selling points in this project, something that is gonna make it special, that simply de-risks it. One of them is, for example, residential development. Again, because demand is so higher than the supply, basically residential project, majority of the ones that we work with go ahead. Financing worth knowing part 2. More info up front, the better. We do purely property development and infrastructure, and our process is expert level. Again, as we would get engaged, you would get the form with everything that we need in the structured form that you need to put in the data room to actually prepare, let's say, for this project to be financeable. And that's basically our speciality. That's basically the stuff that we are looking at, building all of these elements. And that's going to be on the next slide, what we actually look at. There's an expert team assignment from our side, and there is an upfront cost for this one because it covers assignment of 3 to 6 people from our team for due diligence, structuring the deal, making it bankable, and presenting to lenders, investors. And you're gonna see deliverables. So what we basically deliver on each and every project on the next slide. That takes from 300 to 1,000 man hours of specialistic expert work to potentially take it from there. We are transparent, again, which is what this webinar is about, because this is about starting the relationship potentially and finding if there are some projects that we would be interested in basically as part of our process here. And we are paid on the success basis. That's basically where the majority of the stuff is coming into place. Due diligence simply covers or due diligence upfront cost covers simply a couple of people from our team that needs to actually make your project bankable. How do we work with clients? And again, that's what I mean as expert team. What we look at as Itoma Lux. I don't know if it's exactly visible. Even on my screen here, it's not very, very clear. Let's say it's quite small, but basically what we look at, and I'm gonna basically list it out for everyone's understanding. So step by step, you bring the project to us. We understood basically at high level. We understand that this is, for example, property development, residential. You've got this much skin in the game, this much collateral. You've got the permits, appraisal for the land, and so on. So at this stage, we try to find the specific suitable mandate in point one, whether that's going to be investment bank, private equity fund, family office, or perhaps high net worth individual or individuals rather. So that's basically step one. If we get this, what we call interest in principle, that's basically when we move, let's say, to the next stage, which is building professional investment offering memorandum, teaser, and data room structure. And at this stage, we look at all of the elements, and this is basically the longest part of the deal. All of the due diligence, structuring the deal, building the financial model, and so on. This finishes up with having a clear structure between debt and equity, and I can honestly say our main specialty, especially for Africa, is debt. We've got again a panel of lenders that have different mandates for different countries, different types of projects with different ticket sizes. So basically amount of money that is going to be potentially put into the project. And that leads us basically to all of the other elements that might be overlooked, which is capital insurance, any sort of underwriting, organizing insurances, importantly, especially before the elections, political risk cover, because we know what happens when people change seats, as an example. Environmental impact assessment, which is, I think, equivalent of political risk cover, but in the West, where everyone is now looking, oh, is it green enough for us? What are CO2 savings and so on? Any sort of ESG elements, so basically, social, governmental, and this sort of stuff. Intellectual property, especially for the technology projects, if there are some elements of that. And obviously, we act in your business best interest. That's basically the stuff that covers this 300 to 1,000 hours of work from our side. That's the stuff basically that we potentially charge up front to the risk our side, because we don't know if your project is bankable until we look into it, but we're going to advise you what are the elements that are missing, what you need to actually prepare, and when everything is in place, then finally we can bring the money into this particular project. Now, and how do we work? Say, this is on the left-hand side of your screen, is what we deliver. On the right-hand side is basically how we work with you and your team once we decide to get engaged. So first things first, to actually get engaged properly, in step 3 of these 9 circles that you could see on the screen, we issue letter of engagement, and this is only when we have initial interest from some funders, investors, meaning that there is liquidity on the market. Next step is most of due diligence is done by second month of engagement, when we usually issue a due diligence report, which is gonna specify exactly what are the elements that are definitely addressed properly, what are the elements that are still missing on the project. In the meantime, again by end of month 2 usually, we build a professional offering memorandum or investment memorandum. You might have also heard that. And we have regular weekly to fortnightly meetings on the projects we get engaged in. So it's not that you are left, oh, now we signed a letter of engagement, we collected the check for the upfront payment. We are basically all the time in touch to structure the deal, understand the big picture, and so on. Now, before we engage in project finance in an advisory capacity, and hopefully by now, you as an audience have got understanding of basically what we can potentially deliver, how do we deliver, and so on. Before we engage in project finance in advisory capacity, obviously we want to be sure that, there is definitely a need from our side, basically, to get involved there. So we focus on international finance. You obviously know your local market. You might have approached banks in Nigeria. You might have approached, let's say, some other lenders that you are in touch with. We obviously tap into the international network with mandates for the specific territories, ticket sizes, and so on. So what's the feedback? The first question we would be asking you, what's the feedback from the local capital markets, other sources of funding that you as a client have approached? And then basically we would be looking at, first of all, for this pre-qualification part, do you have business plan or deck or some sort of investment memorandum in the early stages, and financial model or pro forma for a start to bring to our team? Because that basically gives us the understanding what the project is about, and second of all, what everyone is looking at in financing, basically the numbers, at least high level. So these are the two first points for pre-qualification. Then second of all, who is working on the project and remaining documentation? In general, what businesses are in the project team? Because if you are a one-person team and you say, look, I want to raise this 20 million because I've got this great idea, and I don't have any experience, but once you give me the money, then definitely everything is going to happen. This is not going to work because you're going to get disqualified one way or the other. And we simply don't want to be working on this sort of projects. We want to be working on something that is actually tangible. So that's basically the second thing. You need to have a team. And you might have heard this phrase, especially if you work perhaps in the past in project finance. Projects needs to be shovel ready. Basically, that's when debt, definitely, maybe a bit less equity, debt is assigned to the project only when everything is in place. And that's where our advisory comes in place. Next thing is obviously what is the project, where is the project located, and what is the total project cost. So that's what we are looking at. How much is the client looking to raise from the investors or lenders? So that's basically the next point, to see what is the total project versus skin in the game versus investment. And then what is the client's contribution to the cost? Skin in the game collaterals. And if applicable, mostly for property development and infrastructure, have they already purchased the land? If yes, at what cost? Do they have an appraisal for this land? So what is the true value of it? And have they got construction permits ready? Because again, project needs to be ready for it to get the finance. So that's more or less what we are looking at. And again, high-level factors need to be satisfied. As high-level factors, and as a summary of this long section, I would think, common structure of fundable projects. So there are 5 main elements plus optionally one more. So what you can see on this thing, on this graphic, is we bring investment, whether that's senior debt, equity, mezz, which is usually majority of the project cost. Then the property developer or infrastructure project sponsor needs to have own contribution, so land, cash, collaterals, some preliminaries like permits and so on. First thing that we look at is experienced property developer, owner, sponsor of the project, and so on. Experience. So no one who is doing something for the first time is gonna get the money because that's really venture capital model. That's basically where venture capital funds come into place, and it will be really a startup, not a project. So that's starting point. Second point, own contribution. For example, land, cash, equity, preliminary. So that's the skin in the game. Something that we see, look, these people have actually invested some of the money into this project. Now it's time to move on. They've got everything ready and they've already put some time, effort, money into it. Next thing are collaterals. So again, project is characterized indeed by having some collaterals that in case of project default we can potentially collateralize and get some percentage of the cost in case of project failure. But again, we try to de-risk the project by working together with the customer and having this expert pre-qualification. Then documentation package. Again, as we get into letter of engagement stage, straight afterwards, we issue the full document, which is a couple of pages long, which actually specifies step by step everything that we want to see on the project. And that's what we call our expert pre-qualification for a number of years of working in project finance. That's just the statement. Private, governmental, and PPP projects are okay. So again, we don't discriminate on this. There are different mandates for different types of projects. Usually, let's say for residential development, very often is PPP project, where, for example, government assigns a piece of land and they give the permission for it to be collateralized, and then some experienced property developer takes on the project and delivers it. But still, we've got some guarantees from the government that this piece of land, in case of non-performance, can be collateralized. And especially here in the West, fit with ESG, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, is a plus. So we very often now justify the project with CO2 emission savings and so on. And then obviously we are happy to look at uncommon projects on a case-by-case basis. But this is more or less the structure that we would be looking at. Now, obviously the last thing is a track record. Again, we've got three different structures: direct lender, advisory in the West, and then advisory in Africa. So what we've got here is very briefly, our own fund has started basically beginning of the year. So we've got a couple of cases. If it goes about, let's say, bridging finance and property development, not let's say much yet, but we are building into this stage. Then, what is your advisory record in the West? Here we've got something, let's say, better. So we've been working, like in the previous point, you could see bridging finance. Before, we've been working with some other lenders, so totaling 3 million as in this example. Now we've got our own fund that could potentially cover exactly the same project. And that's why we have actually established this warehousing finance line in the West, because we see basically that we can potentially be in a good business and making faster decisions on this sort of projects. And again, these are a couple of examples of different projects in UK as well as potential, let's say, in other geographies. So here we've got, let's say, development in Portugal, some oil and gas project in Texas. I think the biggest project I am currently working on with my team is basically oil and gas in Utah, in the west of US. So that's not only oil and gas, but also technology, where the people are going to be, let's say, converting oil sands into oil, plus they will be taking what we call asphalt shingles, which you might see on some roofs of the houses, which is nowadays basically a waste. No one is using that anymore for building the roofs, and they will be converting it back into oil. So this is basically the sort of projects I'm personally involved in at this current stage. And then a couple of other examples. Again, these are basically the stuff that you might be interested in, but I believe Africa is the main focus. Now, if it goes about Africa, we are still, let's say, working to get, being absolutely honest, our first project in Nigeria, but we had some success, let's say, in countries like Ghana, and I think this is a good example with a large-scale housing project in Ghana of 100 million. So that was basically where we work in the advisory, bringing the debt with the developer. I think that was 30% own contribution from the developer that has been on the market for approximately 7 years. So they've been building up. Obviously, no one starts with 100 million shades away from the first development, but because they had experience, they had some skin in the game, they had some collaterals. Basically, we have brought this finance into this project. Then large insurance rope Niger project. So again, this was for solar street lighting. And I understand Niger is, I believe, let's say the neighbor of Nigeria. So again, that's another type of projects. Agriculture in Algeria. If we were to start together, basically you could meet another couple of people from our team. We are approximately 15 people team here in London. So again, if anyone is gonna be visiting us, that's basically where we are coming from. And apologies, someone is joining back. And we are heading towards the end of this financing section. So next slide is actually questions. So let's take it from there. And then a couple of other projects. So again, our team here, we've got quite a lot of people with experience in the West Africa. Basically, our core team has a person who's originally from Algeria, a very nice lady called Sophia. Our investment director has worked for Abu Dhabi Investment Authority and has specialized indeed in the projects in Africa. So that's why we've got some good experience here, good track record that we can potentially go into and present. And these are basically the elements. Then another thing was Mozambique as well as Port Elizabeth, let's say, in South Africa. So again, a couple of different examples, good experience in Africa if it goes about international project finance. But again, this is a corporate project, not something that you get for two-house development. This is not the stuff that we can help with. And I think this is the main point. We talk here rather about the larger property development and infrastructure projects. And I think that's it. Let's say if it goes about this section, I hope it explains how we work, what do we specialize in, and so on. This is financing. Then the next section is going to be marketing and sales. So probably another, I can see exactly 1 hour to get to this point. So it's going to be probably another 30 minutes of this presentation. But I think after 1 hour, it's a good time to potentially have some sort of a question session or break and then take it from there. So if anyone has any questions, please unmute yourself and we can take it from there.
So Eric, thank you for this elaborate presentation.
Please.
Audience will want to have your reactions. Anyone, whether you're online or in the boardroom here, physical, if you have a question, let's have that so that we get them answered and then proceed.
Okay, so anyone, any questions? Please unmute yourself and I'm happy to answer potentially. Again, we act in as a boutique investment bank capacity. That's basically our specialty.
Eric, question.
Yeah. Hello.
Obina,
I've been raising my hand.
Obina, please, before you, just hold on a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll come back to you.
Thank you for the very clear and very concise report given. But do you buy debts? Like you have a project ongoing that has been taken over by a loan and presently stressed out with that loan structure. Do you buy back such projects?
Okay, so let me clarify on this one. Basically, whether we get involved in distressed projects, the answer is yes. But then again, that means that, let's say, non-performing project owner is selling this asset in the current state. For example, 20% finished project to another property developer that has got some experience, that has got a solid plan to potentially deliver it, and this new property developer can take this over, saying, look, I can buy out this project, I've got basically some skin in the game, can you basically bring the rest of the finance? That's the structure we can be involved in. Does that answer your question? But again, we wouldn't be the owners of the project, we would bring it to the other property developer who says, look, I'm gonna now take the risk on this project, you know, by buying this out, and I believe I can finish it off successfully.
And that's after understanding the cost of the distress of that particular project.
Yeah. So we would need to take a look at, you know, it's a standard process. Just this time you've got something that has already started. It's not a green development. It's already, you know, something that is simply distressed. That's the main difference. So probably that would be, in usual cases with distressed project, the approval could be a bit even faster because you've already got all of the plans. You should potentially have all of the permits, all of the land, and so on. So basically these are the elements that would be checking anyway for any green project, which you already should have for this distressed one, if that makes sense.
Okay. Mr. Adematun, does he answer your question?
Yes, it does. Can I see another?
Okay. He has a follow-up question.
Yes.
Also, do you deal with projects, because from what you said so far, you were looking at just infrastructure and residential property development basically in Nigeria. But is it a possibility to digress off those? And I see from the rundown you gave of other projects that you've done various other places, that you've done energy projects, solar financing and all. Is it a possibility that you do those also here in Nigeria?
Okay, I need to apologize. I couldn't hear very well the question. I could hear whether I deal with something or whether we deal with something, but maybe you could.
Eric.
Yes, Jonathan. Maybe.
Sorry, sir. He is saying, is there a possibility that beyond property and infrastructure development or financing, that we can finance some other projects, perhaps energy project, solar project, maybe agricultural project?
Absolutely. So again, maybe that wasn't visible because again, ladies and gentlemen, this presentation might be going quite fast through a lot of information, which I'm aware of. I'm very much, in many different places, my mind is. But infrastructure project, what we mean here is indeed, can I actually, I can zoom it. That's a new thing. So you can see, we've been doing green projects. That's basically, the highest interest at the moment, along with property development in residential space. So any sort of solar farms, wind farms. I don't know, we've got currently with Jonathan, we're looking at waste to energy project in, where was that? Okwe, I can't remember, Jonathan. Can you remind me the place? Okay, exactly where Jonathan has said. So, this sort of project, energy definitely. For example, I think I've seen somewhere the stats that Nigeria has only 54% have proper access to electricity. So again, that de-risks the project high level. Solid access without breaks and stuff like that. So again, that de-risks the project high level for us. So we are interested in one word. What we wouldn't be interested, just to underline that, is purely software project. I don't know, I've got this new CRM, or I've got this new platform that I want to be developed, because we cannot commercialize it. But if you've got any sort of hard assets that we can assign the value to, like indeed the plants, the production facilities, I don't know, energy generation, roads, bridges, all of this can be commercialized as hard assets, then we are definitely interested. Agriculture, exactly the same, especially in the West Africa, we've got some track records. I wasn't directly involved in this one, being absolutely honest, but our partners were. And I think I've got here, right, what we had here is USD 130 million agriculture project in Algeria, where one of our other partners, that would be dealing with the African projects from our business would be involved in is from. So again, vegetable exports and so on. Hopefully you can see, I'm gonna just underline basically this comment, this example from our fund. I wasn't personally involved in this one, being absolutely honest. That was picked up by other partners. But again, we are interested in anything that is a hard asset that can have an assigned value to it. Does that answer the question? Does that make sense?
So in other words, what the audience has to know is that we are not venture capitalists.
Exactly.
We are not angel investors who will venture in software development or design. But once it is infrastructure, once it's property development, when we de-risk it and see that it fits to the standards that we are looking for, then we go for it.
It's all about collaterals. That's what project finance is about. Having collaterals and skin in the game. With software, even if you've got some patents and intellectual property, you still cannot really assign a proper value into it. Hence, this is not what we do. What we can do is anything that is physical. That would be, let's say, the simplest answer where we can get involved.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Okay.
But not only just one from you.
All right. No problem. Are your rates fixed?
No.
They're not fixed.
The rates are not fixed. The best answer, let me just show you that.
Let me rephrase. If you have a rate for a project, is it a fixed sum rate entirely for the duration of that project?
For the particular project, we would agree. Right. Let me go steps so you can see it on the screen. You see our process, which were these 9 circles. Just bear with me. I'm looking for this slide. Okay, it should come on the screen now. At this step, high-level terms quotation, we issue you with the contractual letter of engagement, where based on high-level pre-qualification, your business model, and so on, basically all of the numbers saying, look, I can actually accept the finance at the X%. So that's where we fix, we're gonna raise for you debt at up to X%, say up to 15% per annum, or up to 10% depending on the project, obviously. And then this rate is actually fixed. Okay? And then at the final stage, which is financing, when you receive the money, basically the actual lender has provided you with the final terms. Look, we agreed to raise at maximum of 15%, but we found a lender that can do it at 12%, for example. Okay? And that's basically where you've got this contractually, the rate is fixed, all of the basically any sort of other elements are already in the contract. Does that answer it?
Thank you. Yes, it does.
One more thing on this one. This is debt. Second thing is equity. And again, equity is a different game. Equity, ladies and gentlemen, and I don't want to assume that you've got a lot of experience with project finance. Equity is where the investors share risk and reward with you. So if your project is non-performing, they might unfortunately lose all of the money. But if the project is performing, they might win more than they actually played for. Now, equity works in the way, and again, just to be clear on this one, where you agree, for example, if I've got a project that is going to be, again, for the simplicity's sake, 100 million total value in sales. You put, again, for the sake of example, cost of 50 million, yes, that was the investment by everyone. And then you say, look, with the investor that has invested this equity, we're going to agree on 80-20 split in favor of the investor. So say, out of this 50 million profit, yes, because cost was 50, total value was 100 of sales, basically you share 80-20 this 50 million remaining. So 80%, which would be 40 million, goes to the investor, 10 goes for you. That's how equity works. You basically agree high level what is going to be the profit split on the equity. But again, this is obviously just the example. And then if, for example, your project goes 120 million, you might have, some waterfall structures. So for example, because you perform much better, you get anything over 50 million profit, you get much better percentage as the main project owner. Again, I don't want to go too much into this, but again, with the lender, with the debt, you've got fixed rate. With equity, basically you've got some fixed profit split up to the certain level, where if you perform better than expected, basically you can keep more money than if next level, if you perform better than expected, you can keep more money out of the total profit of the project. Okay, we can jump into this once we have a specific project, but that's high level how this works in the world of debt and equity. I hope
Okay,
it makes sense.
thanks, Eric. Let me at this point assure everyone, even if all your questions are not answered right on this call, we will have a follow-up engagement with you. Just notify us, then we'll take it from there.
Yeah.
Please, Kule, you have to hold on a bit. Let's take Obinna. Obinna, please, thank you for holding on. Can you now ask your question?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think most of the questions I wanted to ask has been asked by the former person that asked, and then also have been provided. I wanted to know what you're really providing for us. I have now realized that it's the financing. You also talked about the issue of marketing. I think there was in one of the slides you mentioned about funding and marketing of the project. I don't know whether I got that right.
Yes, that's the next section. So as soon as we finish this basically I'm moving to indeed to the marketing section of this presentation, which is going to be another half an hour for everyone's understanding.
Eh?
Mute the mic.
I'm gonna mute you, Obinna. Okay, Jonathan, can you say that now? What you were, because we were hearing the echo.
Yeah.
So we're gonna move to this, Obinna, just answering this, we're gonna move to marketing and sales solutions now, as soon as we finish the questions of financing, because again, after 1 hour, everyone needs a bit of a break, I understand. And while questions might be fresh, we're gonna be moving straight afterwards to the marketing and sales solutions, which is indeed the next section of this. But before that, I can see one more person, Kunle Silva, raising hand. Kunle, if you want to unmute yourself and ask the question, and then we're moving on to marketing, unless there's anything else we wanted to ask.
Kunle, please unmute and ask your question.
All right, thank you for the opportunity. Please, I just want to, I want to ask further into what Mr. Engineer Faleye said, as regards to the fixed interest rate. Now, I want to ask, the interest rate, is it going to be based on the interest rate in Nigeria, or is it going to be on the West interest rate? Because obviously we have different interest rates. Excuse me. So is it going to be the same interest rate as we have in Nigeria, or it's quite different?
Okay, so answering this one, there are different ways to structure basically the financing. Again, one of them, let's say, to avoid high interest rates, which we understand that Nigeria is facing at the moment, is basically denominating the debt in
lending rate for African countries, which is over 20 million. Do you mean you can go less than $20 million? Or it's going to be determined by the project we have on?
Right.
I mean, the project we have that is on for execution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I heard two questions, and I hope I'm right on this one. Thank you, Kunle. I heard two questions. First of all, about the rate. Second of all, about the minimum amount for Africa and Nigeria in particular. Answering basically the second one first, if it goes about the minimum amount, again, because we talk here about international corporate finance, because we talk here, let's say, about different regulation, compliance elements, and legal. Unfortunately, at the moment, for Africa, we say that we cannot help with the ticket that would be less than 20 million. For Nigeria, because this is the market of focus for us, the minimum would be 15 million to make it worthwhile for everyone and simply, not waste everyone's time. So 15 million US dollars. That's basically our minimum ticket for Nigeria specifically. All other countries in Africa at the moment would be 20 million. So again, that's international project finance reality. That's basically where corporate finance, where we've got some way to mingle among the rates, among the investors, lenders, is. So that's basically answering the first question. From 50 million in Nigeria specifically, from 20 million in Africa, and obviously less in other geographies. Now, answering the second question, if it goes about the rates, whether that would be the Western rate or whether that would be African rates, there are many different ways to skin a cat. That's basically one of my favorite saying. I don't know who came with it here in UK. Many ways to skin a cat. And basically what I mean here is we can structure the debt or let's say other types of financing, for example, in US dollars. 15 for Nigeria. That's just answer Obina Okafor question. So many ways to skin a cat. We can, for example, denominate the credit in actual dollars. So obviously that would give you some better rate, but then you've got forex risk that would cost extra insurance. That's one of the ways that we can potentially go around that. Second thing, because we are dealing with international project finance, and think about it this way. Say we've got a lender in the US or in UK that actually has a mandate for Nigeria, and in local market they can get maximum, say, I don't know, 7%, for the sake of the example, here in UK or in US. If they get, let's say, 12% in Nigeria, that would be a possibility, which would be still better than your local lending market based on our research, where we could see basically that property development finance starts from approximately 16% per annum. That's basically when we're doing some market research, and that's the absolute minimum we found, basically through the commercial land banks in Nigeria. Okay, so again, it depends very much, let's say, how we structure the deal, whether we can structure this in US dollars, which again has different factors assigned into it. For example, who is the investor and so on. But again, because we go for the corporate finance, usually the rate would be better and more, let's say, favorable in the borrower direction than what we could get from the local market. I hope it makes sense. Again, until we see the project, we cannot really say what will be the rate. It's not like B2C, consumer finance, where you get, if you just borrow 100,000 USD from us, you're going to get it at exactly 7%, because still they apply elements like your credit rating, which is everywhere available for different credit rating agencies and so on. Project finance, we don't know whether the project is feasible until we actually looked into it. I hope it makes sense high level. Again, the best first step is actually seeing the first project, going through the first project, and then you would understand basically the process, because it again takes some expertise to get actually from A to Z. From A, where you bring the project, to Z, where you actually get the finance. I hope this answers your question, but that's more or less the reality of this one. Many ways to skin a cat, whether in local currency, whether in US dollars, with different insurances, with different underwriting, and so on. All of this structure is basically where we put this 300 to 1,000 hours, potentially, let's say, to see what is the best thing for this particular project. Is it better to get it in US dollars with a lower rate but then forex risk, which is going to cost you the extra forex insurance, or is it better, let's say, to apply it in different way? That's basically what we specialize in. That's basically where we spend these man hours on the actual project. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Otherwise, I'm going to be moving to marketing part.
Eric, there's a question. There's a question.
Go.
Actually,
Go for it.
question they have online. I want to
Not sure.
understand.
Not sure if it's hearing.
Okay.
Eric, can you hear
Not
me?
very much,
Can you hear her?
unfortunately.
Okay. I said the question I'm about to ask is it has been asked already, but I don't want to divert the whole thing. What happens is I want to ask if you can finance the hospitality like an hotel. The project is ongoing already. So, due to the financial crisis, the person couldn't continue. Is there any way you can finance such projects?
Yes, that's what stress
That's the stress project, isn't it? So the project is non-performing.
Okay.
Eric,
Yes.
yeah, you've not touched on the issue of due diligence. Oftentimes, what we have found around here is that people are very, very skeptical about due diligence when you bring the issue of due diligence, because due diligence costs money. And the moment you bring that issue of it will cost XYZ amount of money, and the people they don't tend to see it as something that they can do. How do you attend to it, at least especially as we have our audience here, for them to have that confidence that if in the course of our trying to finance a project and it gets to due diligence, that there's a cost attached to it.
Okay. Well, obviously we cannot go around and everyone who would be approaching us actually, saying, look, we're going to do the work for free up front for you. And the reason behind this is very simple. We cannot indemnify your project against non-performance because we don't know at the very beginning, until we put the hours into it, whether the project is definitely ready for finance. What we do on the other hand is, our promise is, first of all, we're going to quote you, and I'm going to bring basically the slide here again. We're going to quote you the exact cost of due diligence, let's say, at this stage. So you're going to have this contractually. As an example, we've been quoting, let's say, on a monthly basis, this specific cost to other customers. That's point number one, what we do for basically people who want to work with us. Point number two, what is going to be there? It's going to be capped. So we can say, look, actually, we're going to cap for this scope of the project at this basic, for example, for 4 months. That's point number two. Point number three, we deliver specific deliverables. So at the end of month 2, you're going to get 2 things, providing that you have provided us with all of the elements that we ask for. First one is you're going to get a report of due diligence. So what we see are the gaps there. Second of all, you're gonna get investment memorandum as a draft at least. And then once the gaps are closed, this is gonna be finalized for the proper financing. And these are the main things that we guarantee as the cost of due diligence while we have the proper contact with you on a weekly to bi-weekly basis. So that's basically the thing. But again, we cannot simply say, look, your project is 100% financeable until we see all of the elements of it. And that's exactly where we put the professional team on it to take it to the next level. And I believe this actual slide explains everything what we look at. We are a professional financial advisory firm. We've been working in the project in Africa and especially in West Africa, and that's basically what we can do for you. That's basically what this due diligence cost covers. You're gonna have the meetings with us, you're gonna see everything transparently, and then if everything sticks up, basically you're gonna get this money. While also the important thing here is, in the first step, you're gonna get interest in principle. So we wouldn't engage unless we get liquidity. As an example, liquidity from the market. As an example, I've got very recently a project in Indonesia, okay? Indonesia, which is basically Southeast Asia. What we found is that they've got Sharia law, so Islamic law for banking, and especially investment banking, that is more strict than the one of even Saudi Arabia. So we said straight away, no, We won't be getting engaged in your project until we find liquidity in principle. So this interest in principle from the investors. And only then we go, let's say, into the letter of engagement stage where we agree on these deliverables that you've got on the screen, where we agree basically on the upfront payment for a couple of months for our team to be assigned to this project, on the success fee that again, we believe that is much more competitive than the rest of the market. And I believe we also got a good track record to basically justify everything that I'm saying here. That's basically what we can do for you, but we cannot indemnify you against the project, not being simply ready, but we're gonna advise you what is missing there. That's what you're paying for. It's like consulting that you've got for structural engineering, but we specialize in financing consulting on this matter. What do you need to get it to the next level?
Okay, thank you. So, as a follow-up to that, what will prevent Itoma Lux and his partners from funding a project that has gotten to due diligence stage, wherein I know before it gets to that, the customer already has engaged. A customer that has paid you due diligence fee, retainer fee, and then at that stage, what will happen that you can't fund the project?
I can give you a couple of examples straight away. Again, I came straight away to this slide because this is the high level what we find, let's say, straight away. So what's the experience? If there is no experience, that's basically not our project finance model, that's venture capital. So you wouldn't get engaged in this sort of project. Second thing, what is your own contribution to the project and what is the value of the collaterals? I can give you an example of the projects that did not go ahead because the customer actually did not tell us the truth about the structure of the land, that they said that is owned by them, but it was actually owned by the other party that did not agree to collateralize it. And that's main thing for project finance. Let's say collateralization of the assets, especially of the ones like land that are part of the project. Then believe it or not, but basically more often than anything is the management team, once we bring the finance, not agreeing on the final structure of the deal because someone has different share ownerships. And then basically, they say, look, actually, what we said at the letter of engagement stage does not apply now. We need to basically change the structure because we don't want to, for example, give away equity. We want only debt because basically the situation changed during the project finance. These are some of the examples of the projects that basically, can be a stopping point until we agree on a bit different structure. Next thing could be basically the permits from the government. That's the political element, isn't it? So if you've got the land, basically it needs to have a specific purpose. If you get basically, permits for the residential, and then suddenly, something changed in the local government of Lagos or Ikeja or whatever, yes, and, they withdraw this permit, that could be another reason. There are many things, let's say, that could potentially kick the project in the back, but that's why we look at all of them with our pre-qualification package. So we try to de-risk it as a financing advisory consultancy. What could be potential elements that could potentially be a non-performance for the project? Then make it bankable and finally bring the debt or equity that we agreed in the first stage through interest in principle from investors. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. To add to that, all you are saying is that the project's documentation, everything that the promoters or owners of the project have presented preliminary before due diligence should be in sync with the outcome of due diligence. Otherwise, it wouldn't go forward.
That's exactly the thing. If the customer tells us, look, I've got an example, I think I mentioned today, an oil and gas deal I've got in US that I'm directly involved in, with some asphalt shingles recycling into oil. Customer told us at the first meeting, our technology is fully ready. And basically that's what we were working towards, basically saying, look, this is a technology deal, much higher multiplier, and so on. These are the hard assets, so we've got collaterals. But then, as we found, basically all of the patents for this given technology were expired. All of the elements, let's say, so there was no real equity in patents. There was, non-competitive environment or competitive environment actually. So that's one of the things that we find, and then we need to work again to restructure the project as we go along. That's part of this advisory and consultancy that we deliver to be sure that basically everything is there. But bear with me, I might find, just looking through my files, I'm just trying to find, let's say, the report for due diligence as an example, just to show you, let's say, what we actually deliver on this actual project that I just mentioned to you. Example due diligence report. So this is with customer non-identifiable information. This is basically what we deliver approximately in week 6 of the project. So it's quite recent, maybe less than 2 months ago, yes, for this project that I was saying. This is basically the sort of questions that we have raised with the customer to see, where this is coming from. As I said, basically they had some deal with JP Morgan. Do they have the equity? Do they have not? What is the structure here? What is your type of the deal? And we look at all of these factors. That's why we assigned a team of 3 to 6 people to every project to be sure. Here you've got all of these patents that we found were expired. So this technology wasn't ready, as an example, and so on. Okay, so hopefully it brings the picture, let's say, of what we look at, because if you go to the bank, let's say, they will look at exactly the same stuff, and then the next bank is going to look at exactly the same stuff, and then the next one is going to be looking at exactly the same stuff. With us, instead of going to, for example, 3 banks, you go to us, we find the right mandate, we get interest in principle, we go through this whole due diligence with you once, and then we go, let's say, to this bank, and this bank, because we know that this deal is ready. That's what boutique project finance is about. I hope it makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. One more question from Kule, then we'll move on to the next stage. Kule, are you there? Please ask your question.
Kule is not here as far as I can see.
Okay, he was raising his hand. All right, Eric, you can go on to the next.
Right, so it was 1 hour of presentation on finance and now half an hour of questions. That's quite interesting. Right, ladies and gentlemen, so thank you for all of this. Let's move to the marketing side. I'm gonna go through this a bit faster for marketing and sales, because again, I don't want to take the whole afternoon from you. But again, I want to present to you what do we do on top of financing to potentially deliver the projects. Okay, so now focus is on marketing solutions. So what we do, we use marketing to de-risk and commercialize the projects. And before we move on, I'm gonna mute everyone because I can hear some echo from the main room. All right, so you're muted just for the future in case there would be any question. Right. So what we've got here, marketing solutions. So let's start basically, what do we mean here as marketing solutions potentially? What is that? So let's take an example. On the screen, you've got 4 different types of most popular and most unique solutions that we deliver. The 2 at the top, which is exterior and interior animation, is something that is becoming very common, definitely here in the West, to present your property development or infrastructure project even before it's been developed. So it helps you with the off-plan sales of your development. All of these solutions really basically have the single goal that even if you just have a piece of land, you can start marketing it, saying, look, this is how it's going to be looking in the end stage. Now, the 2 solutions at the bottom, 4D and drone animations. 4D we've done for TV, actually, for TV channel. This one in particular, I think that was done for the Polish gardening TV program that we've delivered for. And then finally, in the bottom right corner, you've got drone visualization. So that's drone video with our animation on top. And for this particular solution, we haven't found a single party that would deliver an equivalent. So we believe that we are the only one in the market. At least that's what comes from our research. But again, the main goal here is that you can actually start selling and getting cash flow into your business before your project is actually completed. So let's move on. Obviously, one thing is having some beautiful solutions on the screen and on your website, on your social media or other online channels for your customers. Another thing is, if I'm gonna spend this much money, basically what is my ROI on this one? How am I making the money out of it? So here we've got some representative simple example just to present that. What is basically the ROI? So say you are a property developer. You develop these 30 units, so around nice number. Let's say that each of them is 300,000 USD. Yes, so 30 times 300,000 USD gives you a GDV, gross development value, of 9 million. Say that the build cost with land is 6 million. So basically after sales is gonna be 9, to construct, finish everything is 6 million. So your profit is obviously 9 minus 6, 3 million. Say that your skin in the game is 1 million, okay? So and you need 5 million financing. Again, round number for the sake of this example. So if you get 5 million borrowing on finance at say 10% per year for 18 months, that gives you 750,000 in interest, eating your profit as the property developer. Okay? I hope it makes sense until now. So 5 million after 1 year, that would be 500,000. After extra half a year, that would be extra 250, 500 plus 250, 750 in interest, eating your profit margin. So now let's say that you get our solution. Say that we help you sell 5 out of these 30 properties before the build actually started. And the customer has down paid 20%. So because the total cost is 300,000, you got 20% down payment, that's 60,000 on 5 properties, that gives you 300,000 USD. Then during the construction, you sold another 10 and still with the down payment of the same 20 basically percent. So now you've got 10 plus 5, 15 properties at 20% down payment, that's 60K times 15, gives you 900K in deposits paid early. Okay? So now, instead of borrowing 5 million, you can basically get 4.1 million at 10% a year for 18 months. That means that your business case is, because obviously your total amount went from 5 million to 4.1 over the same period with the same percentage assumption, we save you 100K in interest payments alone. And that's basically the business case between marketing solutions, again, or rather larger developments. So that's basically how it works on the number business side. And obviously, if you sell more upfront, also your interest might go down, because that means less risk on the actual lender side, and other, let's say, elements like you don't need to build a show home, or your staffing costs might be lower, and other marketing, let's say, collaterals helping you build the brand. Coca-Cola is not so rich because basically they've got an amazing drink. They are so rich because actually they've got an amazing brand, recognizable everywhere. Right, customer problems. So what do we do? Why do we do it actually? So obviously one thing is cash tied up in property. That's where you need marketing to increase the liquidity of properties. Second thing is disconnected customer base, which is going to be tapping into our sales pillar. So, this marketing leads to sales. And then less and less on this one, fortunately, lockdown. So there were limited or no property viewings over a long time, at least here in the West. I wouldn't think that this actually applies directly in Nigeria from the information I was taking. But again, this can help on the other hand, the solutions we're going to be presenting here, to help actually see the properties, let's say by diaspora. So, you sell Nigerian property to UK Nigerian diaspora or to US Nigerian diaspora. And that's exactly where these solutions we're going to be presenting now make sense and make a business case. Now, the first things first, there is a differentiation between off-plan and on-plan solutions. What is that? Off-plan are the properties before they are constructed. So basically, that's the ones that you need to put a lot of money to construct them, and then finally you get the money back. We try to actually increase your sales cycle by delivering these marketing solutions. And then on-plan properties are the existing secondary market properties that perhaps you want to sell faster as well. So we're going to be referring to these two types of off-plan and on-plan properties throughout this part of the presentation. Our marketing and sales process. So we look at the full customer journey throughout, let's say, the sales. So first things first, no one have heard about you. We try to increase awareness. So people heard about you. They've got some interest, so they check your website. Then basically interest converts into consideration, so we point them to your sales people. And this finally, out of this whole funnel, would lead to purchase. And the value we deliver, I'm just going to skip through this. Basically, we can present these solutions to investors before an architect actually has been involved at all. We can deliver these solutions without involvement from any other parties, because that's again marketing stuff. So it's going to be helpful for the presentation to non-technical stakeholders like investor, potential buyers, as well as local council for permits, which increases your business top line, so sales volume. We can deliver everything that we're presenting now anywhere in the world without the need to visit the property, from simple drawings, and we're going to have an example. Again, that gives you the visibility of the properties anywhere in the world through your website, through the social media, through other public relations campaign that we're going to be presenting now, and enables global remote property sales and marketing, building some sort of luxury brand depending on your business goals, increasing the cash flow if you can bring basically the sales earlier. So that's exactly this ROI example at the beginning of this presentation, and gives the content to your sales network because you can provide the same visualization to the brokers and real estate agents, which might increase property valuation and increase ROI. Again, we look at these goals during the discovery stage of the project because, this is simply what we find we could potentially do, but we try to focus with the customers. Now, I've already presented this one, so that was this 4 most popular solutions. Instead, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna very briefly go to our YouTube. I'm gonna show you probably one of the most impressive videos we have currently on stock from one of our customers. So this is our YouTube channel, our portfolio. Apologies for the sound. But this is probably the one that everyone says, look, I love that. So bear with me. It's opening now. So that's the one that we get the best feedback from, basically from the customers. Again, this is simply an example. Any property or product can be actually presented for marketing or sales to explain what you try to deliver. Apologies, someone is trying to join again. Right. So these were, let's say, the type of solutions that we deliver actually for off-plan properties. And then for on-plan properties is basically this sort of example. So say you've got an existing property which is unfurnished. You can provide us with the picture, and basically at quite reasonable cost, you can get the full picture, let's say, properly furnished to better present to customers. And again, this is if you don't want to pay, let's say, for bringing the furniture in, if you want to beautify the existing marketing collaterals you've got on the property, that's exactly what you are looking into to deliver. Okay, so we can do everything from a simple picture or from the floor plan, this sort of mutual styling, bird eye solutions, and so on. These are the examples where you send us the picture and we can change it exactly to present to your customers. You can say, look, I want this sofa, I want this basic pictures on the wall, I want these colors there. And then finally, the third type of on-plan solutions are bird eye views. So this is basically when we have a simple floor plan drawings, we can actually deliver this 3D presentation like this. So this presents the whole floor at a very reasonable cost, let's say, to the customer, instead of looking at flat floor plans. Okay, so that's more or less basically what we are looking at, and the difference is this one. This is actual Facebook ads, so you probably can recognize. And obviously the picture on the left shows you what does not sell and then what does. So we've taken this picture on the left and we remade it digitally without visiting the property. For the customer, actually, that was in US, into this picture on the right. Okay, and that basically, based on the research and some studies, gives you faster sales and basically potentially higher value perceived by the customers. Right, here again some examples of 3D bird eye views. So this is London Bloomberg Auditorium, 3D floor plans for site management, any sort of logistics on site and so on, because that was quite a big building, let's say, for us. And that's what we've delivered basically there. And then finally, our more technologically advanced solutions, which are augmented and virtual reality. So you can see here that virtual reality grows at the rate of 40%, augmented at the rate of 80% year on year, and this is finding more and more reflection in the actual market for properties and infrastructure projects. So here, very briefly, I'm not gonna go through the whole 5 minutes of this video, but here you've got basically one of the business cards of our customers. Okay, so this is a logo on a business card. And this video is actually taken and recorded on a mobile phone. So that's exactly what the customer pointing mobile phone with our technology would see. Let's take a look.
Have you ever wondered how you can stand out from your competition, engage your client and keep him engaged for longer, or how to give a memorable presentation?
Okay, so you can get this sort of, let's say, property with different levels that they can see on the mobile phone. And again, this can be business card, this can be like here, a piece of paper.
Rooms. Vrugo is highly flexible. You can customize it to your needs to capture the most important aspects of your project and sell it better. Here's another example. Model attached to layout plan. Just a couple of seconds to download the new.
Okay, so this can be any sort of combination of physical world. Let's say you pick
I have another question
your
for
business
you.
card from basically your pocket, you give it to the client of yours, and here you say, look, this is actually the app. If you scan this business card, you're gonna see what we do, the properties that we develop. It's simply to build sort of luxury brand to take it from there. And that's exactly the augmented reality. I'm sure you've heard of some games like, I don't know, Pokemon Go or something like that. That's basically augmented reality for consumers, for some kids, Here what we've got is more professional property presentation for different stakeholders, whether that's buyers of your property, whether that's some other people, let's say, interested in. Let's move on. Oh, let me just get this. I've got an issue with my PowerPoint. That doesn't happen very often, but we know how technology somehow is. It's restarting. So where were we? We were actually on the AR presentation. So we are heading towards the end of this actual section. Right.
Have you ever
And then finally, we've got virtual reality. So virtual reality is where you can put these 3D glasses on, and basically see it, like you were there, even though physically you can be in your living room or, at a party with your friends and so on. But still, there are different types of interactive tools or virtual reality. Some of them are only for the existing properties. So what you've got on this picture is actual 3D camera where you can go with it, you can put it in, and it's gonna make like a 3D view of the whole room. Okay? But with us, we can build this sort of solution, this virtual reality solution, remotely and deliver globally. No need to visit, which also means that we can deliver that from simple concept or floor plans. We don't need to be physically in the property. We can apply that to the off-plan developing properties. Okay, so that's the second difference between us and 3D cameras. Then 3D cameras don't have customization options. You cannot basically put, let's say, this sofa versus this one versus this one versus this one. With our solution, you can basically present to the customer different options. And then final and quite important point, as a matter of fact, customer visits on its own. So basically, I'm on my computer, I cannot see anyone else. With our solution, you can see us friends, you can talk like if you were at the presentation physically. Which can again lead to sales. Say, a couple of customers join in, your salesman joins the same presentation, and you can walk virtually the property. Again, maybe instead of the video of us presenting, I'm going to show you how it looks on our website. So very briefly, if I go to vr.itoma.co.uk, this is basically where we store these solutions. And then we've got this virtual one where I can speak with someone. And if you were to join exactly the same link, say white two-bed apartment, what would log in is the presentation that you could potentially open as VR glasses with specific instruction from us how to do it, or I can walk on my computer and you can see myself here, basically in the background somewhere. Again, I'm gonna switch off the mic. Well, actually, this. And then basically, if someone else would join, I could potentially, speak with that person. I could see basically everything together. We could be speaking, look, what are the options, let's say, for this sofa? Can I actually pick another one? It's almost like a computer game on your mobile or on your actual laptop or computer, as a matter of fact. And again, depending on the customer needs, I can go anywhere basically within this. So this is automatic options, something like highlights of this actual solution. And you can take it, let's say, from one room to the next one. You can see top view. You can see basically everything you want, and you can focus your customers on the specific points. Okay? And then in the second presentation, let's say I'm gonna pick this one, the red apartment with personalization. So here I can pick up, let's say, different elements of the internal design, interiors. So again, the same options. If someone would join me at the same time, we could even speak for this solution. But on this stuff, I can basically pick up the options. So here I've got one sofa, second, third, and then you can decide, look, when this property is gonna be ready, I want this sofa, Then when this kitchen, when this property is gonna be ready, I want, for example, this kitchen set, and we can customize practically anything. And this is basically the power of virtual reality and virtual tools that we can deliver anywhere without the need to be actually in the property. So that's marketing, very briefly. And I think I'm gonna finish this marketing side. Actually, not. This is basically another solutions of ours, but again, I think we can present that on a case-by-case basis. Let's just take a look very briefly how we actually deliver it. So what do we need from the customer, from yourself? For the marketing, it's not simply, I want this and that. We do professional goals discovery. So we check basically what do you need to achieve. Do you want to be selling to the customer in locally, or do you want to actually go, let's say, to the international customers? So we get some brief from you, then we deliver a draft. Where's the noise coming from, guys?
Yeah, Eric, before you go there, I think it would be good to speak to the IST.
You reckon? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So that's our own most technologically advanced solution. Let it be very briefly. So here what we've got is something that you can put in your sales office, potentially for your customers, where actually your customer can see it, indeed, almost like a computer game. And here we've got different levels. Think of it as Shrek's layers of onion. Yes? So the highest level is the level of the environment. Okay, we're going to get to this in a moment, but at the moment you can see basically the visualization that are part of this presentation. So simple, what we call 3D visuals or 3D images. So that can be a part of it, as part of the solutions. Now we go to the level of surroundings. Obviously, when you go to live somewhere, you want to be sure that, you've got facilities and you are comfortable. So you want to see where the restaurants, shopping centers, schools for your kids, entertainment, it's not only about living in this house, it's about something more, about living the life. And that's exactly what this solution can provide you with as an overview. And that's this highest level environment around it, that you can check, and you can put all of these points of interest to present to your customers why this is a good place to actually live around. How easy is it gonna be? Now, second level is the level of actual property itself and all of the amenities. So say, now some properties have, let's say, some communal areas like swimming pools, fitness, I don't know, charging parts, charging, let's say, points for your electric car, and so on. So here you can present all of this to your customers. And then the final level is unit search. Because, for example, your customer has a budget only between 300,000 to 500,000 USD. Only more than 71 square meters, which you can see in the left bottom corner. And basically this way, your customer can pre-select these high-level factors like number of bedrooms, bathrooms, orientation inside the building, the price, and the total size of it, and all of the available properties highlight on it. So this is basically different levels, sort of an intelligent solution for your property to be sure that basically this actual property is available for viewing and your customer take it from there and potentially purchase it, because that's again the end goal of everything that we do, actual sales. So this is the best solution because it's quite powerful for the actual sales office next to the development. Okay, so different times of the day, different positions of the sun. I could even choose different times of the year, I don't know, with the snow or anything like that. Everything is really possible here. It just depends on the imagination of the project owner, budget, of course, and then what your customers are going to be expecting. It's quite a luxury solution, I must say. So, moving on, I think that's the overview of this actual one. Moving to the next point, how do we actually deliver this? So say you've got certain requirements for whichever solution we presented on the previous slide, whether that would be, a simple 3D image or, the very popular visualization, finishing on this most powerful virtual reality, augmented reality or this interactive selector tool. So we start with the discovery call, which is something like finding your goals, who are your customers. So then, based on our expertise, we can recommend specific types of customers. Then, after we get these goals, we're going to be asking you actually for some 2D plans, some sketches, pictures, some description of this. Based on this, we're going to deliver some drafts that you're going to be reviewing until we are all satisfied with the result. That this is exactly how my property is going to be looking like, and this is ready for potential pre-sales to my customers. And that's how your solution is going to be delivered, which then you can potentially place it on your website, social media, any sort of campaigns for advertising or public relations. Now, how do we do it specifically? So here you've got a type of on-plan solution. So on-plan solution is obviously the one that you've already got built. You simply want to beautify it or change the look or customize it to your customers. So say you've got the empty room, you send us a picture of this empty room and you say, look, I want this to look like this office space with this sort of furniture, and you can send us some pictures. Here is gonna be this and that. And then we deliver to you the picture on the right. Okay? And here you can, for example, provide options to your clients. How do you want us to fit it? How do you want this interior to be fitted? And so on. So that's basically the business case for this one, providing your customers with the options. So that's point number one. Secondly, increasing your sales, sales cycle and potentially the value, because the research shows that empty property is always perceived as, lower value than actual something that looks furnished, that brings this imagination to the customer. Now, off-plan solutions, so before the property is actually built. So here we've got an example from the very, very first meeting with the customer. So that was what was provided at the first meeting. Some simple sketch, okay? This is where I'm gonna have swimming pool, this is my hotel, and so on. Then the customer said, look, this is what is gonna be in this property. These are the pictures I found somewhere on Google that I want to potentially incorporate for my properties. That was like 20 pages of that. That's what this customer has sent us. And here you've got this abridged, of course. As we scroll down through this document. That's, the style I want. So we came first with the concept design for the approval of the customer. Are you happy with that? Yes. This was then floor plan that was provided to the local council for some approvals, which led to faster lead times for the approvals, and then options, let's say, for the customers to start getting the traction, whether from investors, local councils, and so on. And the final project is basically this, what you've luxurious customers that are gonna be interested in your project. And then I'm just gonna scroll through this because it's a 5-minute video. So again, different types of concepts of the rooms and so on. And then once again, the final solution view. Oops, we've got this frozen again. Apparently PowerPoint is not so good at playing videos inside it. Next time we might be playing it from outside, but again, let's just take a look. Right, we were on this slide. Let's put it back on the screen and just finishing this. So again, from this one we arrived at the full development, full visualization for the customers that looks like that. That was basically the final effect from a simple sketches without any architect involvement, and that's important here. And obviously you know that architect can cost you quite a bit, but if you need early traction, you need to basically agree with your stakeholders on certain elements, whether that's going to be to present to the financing institution, which is obviously the first step of what we do, whether you need to present that to the political stakeholders, like local council, whether you need to get some early traction feedback. That's exactly where these solutions come into place. So that's basically what we are talking here about. And again, we've got portfolio of customers, mostly in UK, being absolutely honest, with some abroad, like this hotel was actually delivered in Caribbeans on the island of Curacao, just north of Venezuela. So that was quite luxurious project, let's say one of the biggest ones we deliver until now. And you can see all of our portfolio if you go and search for Itoma London on YouTube. So that's exactly where I was presenting this video of this product that was spreading out and so on. There you can see basically, majority of the stuff. I'm not going to say everything. We cannot place everything. We need to have customer agreements. But majority of the stuff that we actually delivered for our customers. And that closes the marketing section of this presentation. The final one is going to be sales. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a time to potentially unmute yourself if you've got any questions and take it from there. Any questions at all? If anyone is speaking, I cannot hear you. I'm going to move basically to the final part then, unless there is something coming up. Again, it's been a long afternoon. I think we can all agree. I hope it brought some value, let's say, to all of us on this presentation. The final section is simply the follow-up from the marketing side. For us, marketing and sales are basically the risking elements of the financing. So we start obviously with bringing finance to the projects, and then marketing and sales are simply to leverage it. So we know what is happening in the customer project. We can help, we can act early, we can flag any sort of elements that might be an issue as a consultancy basically within these areas. That's how we use it. But again, it's about having some bigger plan than just, oh, let's bring some finance. Oh, let's bring some marketing solutions. For me, basically, as the managing director of the business, it's about, let's say, this, sacred triangle of financing, marketing, and sales. And we've just lost the main room, as far as I can see. Any questions, please shoot out. If not, I'm going to be moving to the final part of this presentation.
Yes, I'm trying to raise my hand because I'm having issues with the network over here. I missed most parts of the marketing topic. Will it be possible to have a recorded version of this meeting, because network has not really been fair with me, and I want to know every information in detail. So I'll be sure I've got my hands around all topics. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Well, I understand. Anyway, so if we've got something specific to discuss, Kunle, obviously we can discuss this outside, or you can discuss that with Jonathan and Anjiro, for example. But again, marketing, I'm sure Jonathan will be more than happy, let's say, to jump into this and then take it from there. Well, anyway, at the moment I can see we've lost the main room. I'm just gonna drop a message basically to Jonathan and Jiro to see if they are joining. And this is the last part. This is gonna be probably something like 15 minutes, and then we're done, guys. If there are any other,
But sorry, Eric, if I have the opportunity to ask a question.
yeah, you've got that definitely because we are waiting for this other guys. Yes, go ahead, Kunle.
Yes, Eric, if I have the opportunity to ask it,
Yes, go ahead.
I wanted to ask before you went into the marketing side of it. Thank you. Yeah, talking about the in project financing, and I think someone mentioned the item number 7, item number 13. I really want to know what that is all about because if
I cannot hear you. I could see item number 6 and 13. What's that about?
going to look at it from my professional angle as a security expert, I will say that we know what the situation in Nigeria. Item number 7, which is the due diligence. But I actually want to talk about item number 13, which is the environmental impact. If I'm not mistaken,
I'm not sure which items are you referring. Is that this?
I have clarity on the environmental impact because if I have to look at it from a professional angle as regards the security of Nigeria or in Nigeria, Southwest, I'm talking about what Itoma Lux for in project financing, where you talked about due diligence. I'm particular about number 13.
Is that this number 13, environmental impact assessment?
Which is environmental impact.
Okay.
Am I correct?
Yes, it is number 13. What about it?
Yes, please. Environmental impact assessment. Exactly. How do you mean by environmental impact assessment? Does it include the security?
Right, you're breaking up. But again, long story short, basic environmental impact assessment is usually applicable mostly to the infrastructure project. For example, oil and gas. If something is going to be polluting, let's say, local land or anything like this, and we find this at this stage, obviously the project finance is not going to go ahead. So this is indeed to verify that all of the elements have been considered, that risk assessment is ready, and everything is simply tip-top for the project to go ahead. It's as simple as that. You cannot go ahead and, let's say, I don't know, harm people or anything like this through your project. That's basically what we look at to potentially take it from there. Again, you're breaking up. I cannot hear anything from your side. And you actually left.
Internet has not been really fair me. So I've been going on and off.
Yeah, I can see that. I can also see Oghenekome. I think you are speaking, but you're muted. You need to unmute yourself if you've got anything to say. I can see you talking on the camera. I cannot hear you at all. You need to unmute yourself.
Okay. All right. Can you
Yes,
hear
I
me
can.
now? All right. Now I'm talking about item number 13, which is the environmental impact assessment. Now, when you talk about environmental impact assessment, does this include the security of lives and property? Because I have to be blunt here, and now I'm going to be talking from the professional angle, which got to do with the security of the location of the project. Does the environmental impact assessment work on or has to do with the security of the project?
I'm still not getting your point. Simply, you cannot harm or kill people when you are delivering the project. For example, oil and gas, you check basically whether the project is viable indeed by having environmental impact assessment. Exactly the same for any sort of mining projects. All of these elements are basically part of the risk assessment for any sort of job that is delivered. So what about security here? You need to have it in place to potentially take it from there. Everything needs to be honky-dory, as they say.
Right, because if I'm going to look at the present situation of the oil-rich area in Nigeria, which is the South-South,
Yeah.
security should be a priority, should be at the front burner before implementation or dabbling into any form of investment.
Okay. So again, we checked that during due diligence. That's exactly the point of this one. But again, to get interest in principle,
Thank you.
basically the investors are not gonna check everything straight away. Yes, they're gonna look at the financial picture first. Assuming that actually you are the guy who
I
is
mean, if I
professional
may
and checked
ask,
all of this stuff already.
yes, if I'm not,
Sorry, you're breaking up again. Now you're muted. I see we won't have, I think, them coming back. I sent them a message.
no, I'm okay. That's fine. You've answered my question. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's take it from there. Thanks for that. Anyway, guys, I think the main room is not joining in, from what I can see. At least I send them a message on WhatsApp. I'm gonna try to call them actually. But if there is anything else, and I could see Ogenekome, you were speaking something, but you are still muted. You are muted. You need to unmute yourself on the screen. Otherwise, I can see you speaking, but I cannot hear you at all. None of us can. You should have a button with a microphone somewhere on the screen. I guess you joined from mobile phone. So there should be some microphone button that is currently red. If you click on it, then it should turn, you know, gray or something. I'm gonna guess that the main hotel room ran out of electricity again. Like yesterday, I was speaking with Ajiro, and he disconnected saying, "Look, we don't have electricity, guys." And he couldn't tell me anything for 10 minutes. That's when we were disconnected, because I cannot get to them on the mobile phone. I cannot see they have even read the message, unfortunately. Okay, Jonathan is writing something I can see on the messenger. Let's see. A Giro system tripped as a result of update. Sorry about. So that's the reason why they are not here, guys. Let me just call Jonathan here. Who doesn't love technology? Hello, mate. Are you joining back or are we cutting this off completely? Yeah, no worries. So I think, it's been already 2 hours, more than 2 hours. So I think we could cut this off at this point. Anyway, what's the mood in the room? I guess they didn't like that, you need to pay up front. Yeah, okay, I'm with you. Right, anyway, so I'm here still with Kunle, Ogenekome, and Obi. I think if you guys join, we can simply have the final Q&A. I think the essence of the presentation is that.
Yes, I actually wanted to make a recommendation. Can I put in an advice? Like next time when we're having a meeting, maybe we'll do it in the early hours of the day so we can have better connection because
Yeah.
network services is a bit below the average in this part of the world. Just a suggestion. So when AGO comes up,
Okay.
we can share this together and see how we can
Okay. So Kunle, what did you say
have a
again? That
better reach
to have a better
next
connection,
time.
what? What do we need to do to have a better connection? Because I had Jonathan at the same time when you were speaking. Anyway, guys, so I think this is gonna be it for today, really. If now basically Ejiro and the main room are gonna be joining, this is gonna be a final Q&A. If anyone has any comments, any open conversation, that's gonna be more or less it. Again, the goal of this, we've been delivering this sort of presentations, but believe me, not for 2.5 hours like this one. We always made it like 1 hour approximately, so it was very much, a bridge version. This one is the longest presentation we've ever done. It's going very much into the finance details, a lot of questions, stuff like that. And I can see Jonathan just joined us back
Can we use your boost from this
because
guy?
Ejiro's tablet apparently got an update and
No, the
shipped.
boost.
So
Let's see.
I think this is the final Q&A and maybe some comments, stuff like that. And perhaps the first step is simply to see where we are all coming from. If there are any sort of projects that would be potentially a fit, potentially, let's say, of our interest as a business.
Yes, I left my while. All right, we can still connect through the now. Let me see if I can get.
It looks like no one left the room yet. Well done.
Yes, yes, Eric. We are still all here. We just had a challenge on the other system. We think it's updated. That's why I had to shut off by itself our battery.
Okay, no worries.
But meanwhile, there's no more HDMI cable that we could just use to connect this one.
but we are hearing you or bit faintly. So maybe you could now use microphone.
Okay, so what do you want me to do? Do you want me, let's say, present anything else, or shall we just have Q&A session? Final.
Yes, I think it's also best that we just wind down from here. Q&A.
Exactly, because
Okay.
guys, I'll be honest with you, that's the longest presentation, the most detailed
Yes,
we've ever
Eric.
done.
Yes, Eric. Everybody would have been very patient. A presentation of more than 2 hours is not easy for people sitting, and then we need to allow them to internalize what has been dished out and then engage more afterwards.
Exactly. Let's take it from there. So if there are any questions, very happy to look at that and let's say continue conversation. If not, it's time to probably, start to relaxing in this nice, at least here in London,
I was trying to
afternoon.
say,
Yeah,
I was trying to say something the other time.
go ahead, Kunle.
Yeah, please go on, Kule.
Yes, I was trying to suggest something while you were away in the main room, Jonathan. And yes, thank you. Can we, next meetings or succession meetings, can we be having it in the early hours of the day in Nigeria? That is when we can actually have better internet services, because this on and off is not helping anybody. Couple of information.
Sorry, say that again. I'm not quite sure we
I
got
think he
you.
said that he would like
Have
earlier
been missed out.
hours.
And
Yeah.
secondly, I'll be very happy to have the message of the presentation we have had. So if it is possible, say this, say the early hours of the day, reception will be better then on the internet. We can have better internet services at the early hours of the day. That is number one. Then number two, so that we're not going to miss out on the presentation given by Eric, can we have a recorded message, a recorded presentation that Eric is on about now, so we can pick up every information we've missed due to poor internet services?
Right, so answering this one, first of all, this presentation is recorded. So that's basically the starting point, and it's gonna be put on YouTube. As a matter of fact, ladies and gentlemen, we've done like, I think, around 25 of these events before, but this one is the longest, I'll be honest with you. Really, so you've got that on our website, as a matter of fact, straight away, previous events. So, here we've got some point of reference, and this one is gonna be added.
So now, moving
Yes, so here we've got the list and social proof of what we've been doing, also with our associates from Asia. So, because India and Bangladesh are the other subjects. So, in summary, this presentation is recorded. We're gonna send basically the output of it, potentially as some sort of a link so you can watch it and
Thank you.
take a look at that. So that's point number one. Point number two, again, it depends on the audience, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're supposed to start at 10 Lagos time, but I think majority of the people were just here at 11. So it's completely up to you how you want to organize it. I'm happy to always engage in the conversation and discuss project finance, marketing and sales, like we've been doing today. And obviously we are happy to, organize a shorter version, like we've been doing until now, because this one is probably the most in-depth one, especially on the financing side, because that's where we find a lot of questions. Everyone needs money for their projects. So if you, Kunle, because I think that was the question from you, want to discuss that with Jonathan and Ejiro and organize something for whatever audience you've got there, obviously I'm happy to oblige and deliver something earlier. It's up to you, gentlemen, how you want to organize it. In summary, this presentation is recorded, link is gonna be provided. Everything else, please speak up with Jonathan and Ejiro for us. Thank you very much. I hope it makes sense.
And again, if it's about internet, I don't think it's the issue here. We just had, it's a bit more technical than internet as at this breakdown. Again, we are not also saying that we can't organize any meeting. We can organize meetings earlier than 10 a.m. Whatever, like Eric says, whatever suits you, and maybe specific group that you would want us to speak to. If it's 6 a.m., if it's 7 a.m. that they want, provided they are comfortable with it, we will jump into a call.
Indeed. The funny thing, Jonathan, is we've been speaking now, and I can see Kunle has left the meeting. So he hasn't even heard anything. We've been just... So
Really? Okay.
Anyway.
Okay, you know they are waking up. He told us they are just waking up.
Okay, still, please, if you can communicate with Kunle outside of this meeting, I think that's gonna be the best thing. We said what we were here to say. Right, so thank you for this question, even though he's not here anymore. Anything else we can help with here with? Any other questions? Any other elements? Was it useful? Did it bring, let's say, a bit of light on project finance, or maybe a better question from my perspective? Has anyone here in the room and online had any sort of experience with project finance in the past?
Eric, can you repeat that?
Had anyone in the room had any experience with project finance in the past?
Oh, okay, let me... Eric is asking whether there's anyone with project finance experience. Yes, there is.
Okay. And how was that basic? What was the approximate value of the project? How did it work? What was the project actually? Was that property development or was that something else?
Okay, so the cost wasn't this one.
Any specifics?
I don't know. Yeah, it's not as much as our minimum. The project he has managed. Which area? Which area, sir? That was federal. Okay, property. Okay. Eric.
Yeah.
Eric, are you there? Kunle is back on. Okay. 500 million naira. 550 million.
Yes,
550 million naira. And it was in collaboration with Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria.
Okay, right. So interesting project. Well, anyway, so
anything else you want to know?
I think not at this stage. I simply wondered if anyone had any sort of experience with project finance in the room, because again, I came here with the assumption that basically everyone had very basic idea what project finance is and how this might be working. Anyway, unless there's anything else that we'd like to discuss today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here available. Otherwise, it's time to, I think, wish everyone a good day, good rest of the day. And I'm going to be...
Okay, Eric, I need to address Kunle's concern again, because while I was talking, he left.
Okay, go for it.
Or he was logged out. Kunle, are you back on?
Yes, he is. I can see him.
Yeah, I just want to be sure that he's hearing you.
Yes, I'm back on. I can
Are you
hear
with
you
us?
loud and clear.
Mr. Siva?
Yes, he said he is.
All right.
Yes, I am.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your patience.
Go on, please.
Right, I was saying that, okay, I was saying that the problem wasn't internet. The problem or the challenge we just had wasn't internet. but a systems thing, okay? And then 10 o'clock or 10 a.m. in Nigeria is not too late. It's early, quite early actually for some persons, including the ladies among us. You know, they are mothers first and foremost, and they are wives who will need to do some preparation in the home before leaving. So if you put such meetings earlier than that, I mean, some of them may be affected. Their attendance may not be there. But that's not to say that we can't organize any meeting earlier. If it is 6 o'clock, 6 a.m., if it is 7 a.m., that suits you, or maybe the network that you want to bring about, we are happy to speak with them. If anyone also is interested in individual presentation, we are also up to it. We can engage individuals and speak to them or present to them or discuss whatever concerns or whatever project that they may be having. So there's no one size fits all in this that we are doing. We accommodate the uniqueness of everyone that comes to us.
Okay.
I don't know whether I answers.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Jonathan, for your response. Presently, I'm not in Nigeria, so I understand that it is not it's an internet problem, but rather a technical problem. But all in all, I know that there is so much traffic during the day on the internet, and that is why I suggested very early hours of the day, because that is when I actually have business meetings with clients.
Yeah, we're actually working now, and then it freshman to speak on so we'll take on the sales data. Yes.
Okay, guys. So I think the next steps here, simply just closing this presentation, is if there are any projects, actually, we are happy to discuss that. Otherwise, I think, let's take this conversation offline in this meeting room where you, Jonathan, and Ejiro are. And if there is anything else you'd like from me, just call me. Yes, and I'm happy, let's say, to explain on anything else.
I will, Eric.
No worries.
So, yeah, Eric, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of our team from the Itoma Lux, London, we want to appreciate all of you for your time. We want to thank Ejiro particularly for, in a short time, organizing this. We have just been here with us few hours for putting this together. We want to appreciate it. But we want to particularly thank all of you. Other things to come here, sit down to listen to us. It's not what we can take for granted. So we want to believe that this is the first interaction that we are having with you. No matter how fluffy, no matter how unpleasant it is, we want to beg you to accommodate us for things will improve as we engage with you subsequently. Thank you very much for coming around us. We want to pray that something good or something beneficial will come out of this for all of us who are participating in today. Thank you. Thank you. Very nice. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So Eric,
Yes.
thank you, Barrister Obianoye. Thank
Yeah,
you,
now,
Pastor
Jonathan,
Joe
now.
Come.
I think that's how you say it. That's all I know.
Eric, yes, it's good to have you around today.
Okay, thanks, guy.
So
Thanks,
we'll
guy.
talk much more
Thanks.
later.
Have a good afternoon. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so I appreciate everyone.